Hello, and welcome to episode 102 of Theater Nerds.
I'm your host, Rachel Jones.
And I'm your other host, Taylor Reed. Theater Nerds is a podcast about our obsessions with theater, where we will explore all aspects of theater, musicals, and everything in between.
This podcast is not set up to be a deep dive into technique or theater history, but we're hopeful that no matter if you're an enthusiast like us, or if you've only seen your best friend's production of The Odd Couple Jr., you'll enjoy this podcast. So cue the orchestra and come nerd out with us.
In case you guys didn't know, you can find us on all major podcast platforms and our YouTube channel. Please subscribe. Theater Nerds Podcast. It's in our show notes. Go do it.
Do it. That's right. And also kick off 2024 by helping us out and other theater nerds by leaving a review and star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
That's right. To find out more about this theater nerd cult, which repeatedly my wife is like, why do you call it a cult? Like every episode she listens, she's like, what? Check us out at theaternerdpod.com, or you can also find us on Instagram and Threads at Theater Nerd Pod and on Facebook at Theater Nerd Podcast.
In today's episode, we're discussing A La La Land, The Producers.
All right, Rachel. Here we are. Happy late January.
It's the end of January. Literally the final countdown. We're so close.
Yeah, I know. I feel like January went by fast, but also slow. Is that weird to say?
No, that's exactly how it always is. You're like, oh, I'm going to have so much time to do things because January is like the longest month in the history of months. And it's going to be, slow. I'm going to get my stuff going. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, it's the end of January. Now it's February. And I think also the snow really, for me personally, really sped up. I missed a whole weekend there, which is all gone. Right. I don't know where it went.
And at least for all those doing dry January, it's almost over. So
good for you.
Enjoy alcohol February. I don't know. Getting drunk February.
Well, also this is the moment where you realize, did you make intentions that you are going to keep because it's the end of January? So how are you doing? Just a quick check-in.
My intention so far was to have a better morning and evening routine, and so far that has half happened.
Like which one, the morning or the evening?
It depends on the day. And awesome. It's funny, we have Canva for our show art for our Instagram and social media, and so I made a little morning and evening routine thing on our Canva, and it's really cute, but I just haven't gone and printed it out yet. So maybe when I eventually print that out in June,
halfway through the year,
I will see a visual on my mirror and be like, hey, you need to get this together.
You gotta do that. Gotta get it.
Yeah. No. But I did start a new shampoo. I shampoo and conditioner and body wash, new brand. So I know it's a big year for 2024.
The election and Taylor's new hair product.
I think that's more of a big deal.
In that order, maybe the other order actually.
Yeah. Not a sponsor, but Billy Jealousy is the brand. And it has little devil horns. It's actually kind of cute, except it's very expensive.
Okay. Yeah.
Lots of things to discuss today. This episode, for those when we said on our last La La Land that we wouldn't do any more La La Lands for a while. Yeah, we moved this one up, and we will discuss that later and why. But before we get into all of that about producing, we got to do our weekly Broadway theater news, current Broadway theater news segment. What's the buzz? What's the buzz? Tell me what's happening. What's the buzz? Tell me what's happening. And there's a lot of buzz. There's so much buzz. Yeah. And I think it's because we have not recorded in 9 days or something like that. Yeah, 10 days. So just the way our schedules lined up, So there's been a lot happening in the past, and honestly, I left some things out because I was like, there's just too much.
There's just too many things.
Yeah.
Just too much.
Schmigadoon, our first piece of buzz, gets canceled before season 3. I was kind of sad by this, even though I didn't watch season 2.
Oh, Taylor.
I have not watched
You're
yet.
the problem. They looked at the ratings and they said if one more person had watched this show, we would have continued with season 3.
It's all my fault. You're right.
Yeah, it's all your fault. What's crazy? I mean, I understand. I mean, they canceled it after they said they were going to have a season. So I hate that, right? Like they already said there was going to be a season. So there was work done on the season. 25 new songs were written for that season. And then it got canceled. So I'm also.
This is like if The Great Gatsby didn't go to Broadway this season.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of one of those moments where you're like, well, what are we going to do with all those cut songs? Is someone else going to be able to pick up the show? Do you think that Max or somewhere else would pick up the show? I don't know. But either way, like they wrote all of this stuff. And they wrote a season. They writ it. They did it. And they writ it already.
Oh my god. What do you think the shows, because wasn't the second season like Sweeney Todd and Chicago? And yeah. What do you think the third season would have been? Like another era, like Hamilton?
No.
Like the modern era?
No, I mean, but maybe like Rent.
Oh, true.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that was right? That was 70s, 80s, right? And so it would have been 70s, late 70s. So this and 80s, and so this would have been like late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s.
Rent and Ragtime and The Lion King. I'm all down.
Oh my god. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Or Beauty and the Beast, Miss Saigon, Ragtime.
Right. Oh yeah, the helicopter. Yeah.
Falsettos.
That would have been great. Oof. Wow. Heavy hitters in the 90s.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So good. Yeah, I hope someone picks it up, but I feel like if it hasn't, like I feel like Schmigadoon had a cult following, but it's not like Brooklyn Nine-Nine got canceled and then got picked up. Like it's not like that where it like had a huge following. So I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't get picked up, but we'll see. I mean, crazier things have happened. So
it's true.
Maybe they'll do a movie. Schmigadoon the movie.
Oh, or just release the songs.
Or just do it on
stage. Release a cast album. Plot twist: Smash is actually Schmigadoon, season 3.
Yeah, she's actually Schmigadoon. Amazing. How Did Dance in Ohio came out with the original cast recording.
Sad. Yeah,
I know. And then 3 days later, basically announced that it was closing on February 11th, which is very soon. I mean, that's like 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
So
if you haven't seen it, get your tickets and go. Listen to the cast album. I'm
doing maybe that was Harmony, but they're doing a buy one get one free. Is that Harmony or is it this? I don't know.
I don't know, but I do know that I'm hoping for some rights. I'm hoping that they license this. I think that would be awesome. Or
Rachel's gonna perform it in her.
I just want I honestly, it would be great if it toured.
Yeah.
Talk about accessibility and like just all of that, and a great story. And I don't
know.
Closing too soon.
Closing too soon for sure, but I don't know if it couldn't recoup its investment on Broadway. I feel like a tour is like too much.
Maybe like.
But we'll see.
Time will tell.
For sure. We will be talking about How to Dance in Ohio later on in not this show, but later on in the show, in the macro sense.
In our podcast.
So in our podcast. Get ready for that. Michael Stuhlberg. Well, this literally happened minutes after we ended our spring theater preview.
Always.
We'll star in Peter Morgan's Patriots, which is a 12-week limited run opening on April 22nd. Possibility for Tony's.
So 20 shows coming to Broadway.
Yeah, 20 shows. And then like what did I see? Like 13 are closing or something like that.
It's crazy. Did I send you that TikTok where it shows it's got the spreadsheet of all the theaters and what's in them?
You probably did. I just need to go back and watch it.
We'll link in the show notes.
Yeah. I do want to stop and pause here since we're talking about openings and closings. As of releasing this show will have closed, which is Gutenberg.
Yeah.
Closed yesterday, and obviously I think it's done incredibly well for its limited run.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's in part to that there's the 2 stars are in it, but then also the producer, LOL producers that we're talking about today. Um, it was a big part of it. One of the producers that we'll be talking about, I think. Wait, was Matthew producer? I know Nathan Lane was. I'm wondering if Matthew Broderick was.
I think so, but I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah. Um, I think it was commercially successful. Here's my big question: Is do you think this show will be nominated for Tonys? Like, with with the whole season, like, will it be remembered by June?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
It was a
I
very.
do.
You were like, yeah? Question mark.
I do. I just wonder what eligibility, like what other eligibilities work within the show.
Hmm.
I think that I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Direction,
It's
it
just.
would really good direction of the show.
Hmm. Hmm. I mean, if Best Actor ends up being not stacked, I could see Andrew and Josh getting in, but I mean, we'll have to see.
Mhm.
Because right now, I guess it's like Eddie Redmayne, Jonathan Groff. I mean, the Notebook guy. I don't even know. But Grant Gustin
We
from Water for Elephants. I guess
Oh
Jeremy
wow.
Jordan for Great Gatsby. I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say
Yeah,
there feels like there's
yeah,
quite a few.
yeah. So I wish they could like as a pair, like both of them would win. Like kind of like the producers. Like I wish both of them could win.
Together.
That would
Yeah.
be so great.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that because I'm excited that they got to do it, but it is, and it was a limited run, so they always were going to close. But I'm sad that they're closing because I think
Yeah.
it's always so fun to see like who the producer's going to be. The fact that Hillary Clinton was on this past week is wild. I was like, what? Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's crazy. It's crazy.
Hmm.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, happy trails to Gutenberg.
Happy trails. Happy trails. What else we got, Rachel? Lots of things.
We learned that Jess Foley is going to star in Burlesque, the musical that's going to open in the West End.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Very exciting.
exciting. Very
Another
exciting.
movie turned musical, and maybe we'll get
A movie
the
musical
movie musical movie.
musical, a movie, a musical, a
Yeah.
movie musical movie. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Something like
And
that.
that's not marketed as a musical.
Yeah. Do
Yes.
you want to talk about the Oscar nominations?
Yeah, I'll quickly mention the Oscar
Yeah.
nominations happened this week. Broadway Fair stars Coleman Domingo, Danielle Brooks, who is reprising her role from the revival of The Color Purple, and Bradley
Mhm.
Cooper and more received Oscar nominations. Very exciting. It's honestly last year was and is an exciting year for film, and so I highly recommend watching a lot of the movies that were nominated. And yeah, it's exciting, and I think we'll be seeing a lot of these stars on the stage as well because a lot of them came from the stage. So I think they'll flip flop between the two, which is exciting. I really love Coleman Domingo as a performer, and I think he's going far. And really, I put this next bit of buzz on here too
This is
because
crazy.
it's crazy. He's gonna star and direct in Nat King Cole biopic, which is very exciting.
Mhm.
I hope he sings the Christmas song in it. That's one of my favorite Nat King Cole. I think he sings that,
Yeah.
right? Isn't that Nat King
Mhm.
Cole?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and he was so good in The Color Purple as Mister, and I kind of wished he'd gotten nominated for that. To be honest, he's so
Mm.
talented. Um, but I feel like he's been on the rise for a couple of years and so very exciting. But he's done so much theater. I was watching an interview with him, and he's done a lot of theater like back in. He used to put on like one man shows and like all these things. So very cool.
That's cool. I'm very excited.
Mhm.
I think we're living in the
Yeah.
age of biopics, and I made the mistake of saying that I'm not really interested in them and haven't seen a lot of them, and then I saw the preview for the Bob Marley biopic, and I was like, okay, I'm in.
Yeah,
I'm
that looks
invested.
great. Yeah.
I'm
I
invested.
love the like Bob Marley colon so and so dash whatever. Like it's like the longest title in the world.
Yeah, One Love something.
Yeah. One Life to
But
Freedom.
it looks really good. It looks really good.
Yeah, it does look good.
Also
of really
this
good
whoa
and steamy.
I looked at these photos and I was like, whoa. So we got a first look in photos of the Addams Family West End production with
Wild.
Ramin. Yeah, Ramin?
Ramin.
Ramin, thank you.
Ramen? He's not a noodle. He's not a noodle soup.
Cara Blue, I can't say anything. And Michelle Visage. And Michelle, I was like, hello?
I know. This is hot Addams Family. This is like hot priest territory of Fleabag. Yeah, this is sexy Addams Family. I mean, also if you look, I mean, I guess what it wasn't Brooke BB Newworth. BB Newworth was hot in the original, but then Nathan Lane is like this. You know, he's Nathan Lane.
Ramin looks
yeah. I know.
We went from Phantom to whatever he played in Anastasia to back to Phantom to this. I'm sure he was doing.
He's done lots of Phantom. I mean, and then Entourage, of course.
Oh yeah,
where he started.
Yes.
Can't forget his roots.
Sorry. This always comes back.
Yeah, always comes back. Yeah, I would I wonder if this will transfer to Broadway.
I hope so. We need a revival. This was on Broadway for like the shortest period of time, and it was during like Catch Me If You Can was on Broadway, and it just
it's such a good musical. I've heard people complain about it, and I'm like, no, there's no hate for this musical. It's so fun.
No hate.
The score is amazing. Whatever.
Yeah,
come at me.
It's so good. Come at
me. Yeah. Speaking of sexy, Alan Cumming will bring his solo show to 54 Below on March 11th, which is just around the corner. It's for one night only. Go get your tickets.
I wish I could be there. Wow.
I know. I also, speaking of one solo show, the Gavin Creel solo show that happened off Broadway. I've heard something like that. I've heard is incredible and like needs to be on Broadway, and like everyone, like people were like weeping at it. Like I've heard it's amazing.
They extended it because so many people were going to see it. And that was with MCC Theater. Yeah.
Yeah. So great. What this next bit of news was interesting.
I told you, didn't I tell you this was coming?
Did you?
Didn't we talk about how Beauty and the Beast was going to come back to life?
I thought it was going to have a revival on Broadway, but not do it. Why would you do a tour first?
Jokes. We're doing a tour 2025 to assess if we can kick Aladdin out of the New Amsterdam Theater. So in 2025,
so they're setting up the vibes to see if it does well.
I think so.
Disney, how much money do you have? Because isn't a tour more expensive than a Broadway?
I guess it depends though, right? Because it's a specific amount of time. Right? Like, you have to sell out. Right. I think that the budgeting probably is a lot easier to make possible. And the sets can't be as elaborate. Like you do cut a few corners related to stuff. Although you do have to pay for travel and all that. I mean, I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. And all the hotels, don't they pay for the hotels for the actors?
Yeah, but aren't you going, you're only there for like 6 shows, 7 shows. It's easy to sell out 7 shows in Atlanta, Nashville, and somewhere in the middle of nowhere where the Broadway comes. It's maybe a smart decision. Anyway, all this to say,
the Beast is a brand, so like people know it, so people will go. But
yes, 2025 national tour of Disney's Beauty and the Beast.
So that feels so far away. I don't know why, but it's only a year away. So that's exciting. Away. If it comes to my area, I will try and go and see it. So. I love Beauty and the Beast. I think it's great.
I think that they'll have to get some good Belle and Beast people on the tour.
Yeah, that's what's interesting about starting with the tour is like normally a tour is like, I mean, like the Into the Woods tour was interesting because it was like all Broadway people, but normally it's like second or third tier people that go on tour, which is fine. It's great, but yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I know it would be funny if it's like, I don't know, Renee Rapp in Beauty and the Beast.
Katie Rose Clark. Yeah.
Yeah. Katie Rose Clark, I don't know. Is she a little old? I love her,
I
but
don't know.
she could be like Babette or Mrs. Potts. Maybe not Mrs. Potts. She's too
Not
young for
Mrs.
Mrs. Potts.
Potts. No.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big cast though, and it's gonna be a lot. I've heard it's gonna be like very different.
Well, and I saw Beauty and the Beast in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
So that was
I
fun.
saw it in 2012 on a tour.
Yeah.
In Richmond, and it was wonderful. I loved it. It was
so
very
good.
magical. Saw it on my birthday. It was great.
Oh.
The day that William and Kate got married, I saw it.
Wow, it was a big
I know.
day.
They got married on my birthday. I didn't get up and watch it, but I went and saw the William and Kate happened. I went and saw The Prom. Do you remember that Disney movie, The Prom?
No.
Yeah, it wasn't that great. And then I went and saw Beauty and the Beast. It was a big day.
That is a big day.
Back to the Future, speaking of 2025, is going to, these next three things are all 2025. Is going to premiere in Japan. Big Back to the Future heads in Japan apparently in 2025. Yeah. Marty McFly is huge there.
I still
Can you
can't
imagine if it was like Hello Kitty and then Marty McFly?
I can't believe this is still happening.
Like it's still running?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's a brand, so like people know what to expect, I guess.
I thought it would announce a closing for sure in January. Like that it would announce.
Are you looking at the grosses?
No, but I'm just saying based off this was my prediction based off of before it came to Broadway.
Right. I doubt just because of the season, I don't think it's going to get any nominations. And if it does, it would be like production design maybe, or I don't even know about costumes because like, I don't know. Maybe choreography. I've heard the choreography is good. I don't know.
It's very interesting. And doesn't what's his name? The guy who's in the producers, he's in this, right? He is.
Roger Burt. Yeah. He's Doc Brown. He's Doc. Yeah. He looks very good. But Roger Burt's great in like everything he does. So Hercules. When is it coming to Broadway?
Give us what we want, Disney. Give us what we want.
We don't need the Beast National Tour. We want Hercules. Honestly, or we want Hunchback on Broadway. That's really what we want.
Just give us something.
Yeah. Newsies revival. The Betty Boop musical. I know. Oh my goodness. Betty Boop musical, which apparently did really well in, was it Chicago? Is that where it ran? Or I don't know. We'll have to look.
Hold on. Pause.
It's going to open on Broadway in 2025. I think the most exciting thing about this is that it's not another show opening this season. I was like, oh,
it's
great.
Not another. Yes, I think it's Chicago. Yeah. Chicago.
Schmicago.
Schmigadoon. Once again.
Schmigadoon. I mean, this isn't surprising. It got good
reviews.
No,
this is not
Chicago.
Surprising. And the media was pretty good, like in terms of the social media and the marketing. I think it's similar to like trying to also a smart move not to move until 2025. You got to let this season pan out. You got to build your audience. This is one of those things we've talked about last week. If you can't build an audience, it's really hard to have people come to your show. It's really hard then to recoup, let alone just stay in business if you don't already have an audience. And if you don't already have an audience, you have to build it. And so to come into, I mean, people like Betty Boop, but not that many people. And people are like, what the hell is Betty Boop, the musical going to be? But for them to wait so long and to build some momentum and, to come, and they've been doing some good marketing teases even when the show was in Chicago. So.
Right. Yeah. And again, it's all about not a lot of the time, but I think in the past, it's a lot of producers have thought, oh, I want to get the right theater for this show. Like what theater? And I think waiting till 2025, they can almost wait and get whatever theater they probably want, because who knows what's going to be on then. I mean, the big hitters will still be there, but maybe they'll be able to get a theater they really want. So that's exciting for them.
That's exciting. Also, I want to say I found out personal news that Moulin Rouge is coming to my town as
That's
a tour.
exciting.
Yeah.
When is that?
So, sometime next season. This is their teaser for us to get tickets for next season.
My local theater, I think one of them's announcing next season. I think the Little Theater of Norfolk, I think, is doing Sweeney Todd, which is exciting.
That's so crazy.
I know, because they posted like little photos each day, and one of them was like a barber chair, and so everyone was commenting like Sweeney Todd, like hint photos. They were posting like.
Oh, that's cool. I love a hint photo.
Yes, they were doing that. So I think they're announcing next. I love when people announce seasons. So much fun.
Mm-hmm. It's so much fun.
Yeah. What's our last thing? Pics,
and we got video of the first one, but pics of and video from Once Upon a Mattress at New York City Center Encore's production. Oh my gosh. Sutton Foster singing Shy. Slay.
Yeah.
Like, this is one of those ones where you're like, will this transfer to Broadway?
Yeah, I was wondering that. And maybe in the fall. I don't know if it would do it this season.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just like, maybe the summer would be nice. Like, could it just open in June?
I guess that's what Into the Woods did, but I guess there's not a lot of revivals this season if you think about it. So it could sneak in there. I will say obviously we love Sutton Foster. We did a whole deep dive on her. Go listen to it. This was the first time I was like, Sutton's getting a little old. Like,
she is old. Of course she's old.
No, I know, but I was like, wow. I was really like, yeah. And she hasn't done a show in a while.
She hasn't. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, she went and did Anything Goes in the West End. But yeah, I'm excited for her. Of course, she's going to be in Sweeney Todd with Aaron. So maybe they'll announce. But I feel like it's not getting like the exact same buzz as like Into the Woods did. But it is interesting. The costumes are very colorful, and that reminded me of Into the Woods.
The set design is gorgeous.
Yeah.
So it's pretty pictures, really cool. And then we also got pictures from Music City. Wow, we got pictures from MCC Theaters, The Connector, by Jason Robert Brown. Can I talk? I said Racin.
It's okay.
Racin Robert Brown.
Yeah, Ramen Caramello. I absolutely would love to see this show. It looks so fascinating, starring Ben Levy-Ross, which is exciting.
I saved it because I saved it on my Instagram because I was like, I need to come back and like take a moment. These pictures are beautiful.
When
not
Rachel's
in like a sexual way,
bed,
but like not like in a sexual way.
Not in like a Saltburn way.
It's so gorgeous. I just needed to like not just scroll through it is what I needed to come back.
Yeah.
Take it all in.
I think this will hopefully transfer in the fall to Broadway, which would be exciting. I've heard it's wonderful. It's been getting very good reviews. And I was scrolling on MCC's website, the show website, and they have free childcare offered to parents during the matinee shows. And I was like, why doesn't every show do this? Like, that would be amazing. I was like,
once again, we say
so many
accessibility.
People would come.
Yeah.
So many people would come to your show if you had that. Do you realize that? Wow, amazing. I realize that is hard to coordinate, but wow, amazing. Good for you, MCC Theater.
MCC is really awesome, and they're a nonprofit.
We love that.
Yeah.
We love a nonprofit. This podcast is a nonprofit.
Not legally speaking, but yes.
Yeah. You know. That is our buzz for this week. Lots happening. What do you think of Sexy Gomez? That's all I want to say. Of course, now we transition to our main course, which is our La La Land, The Producers, the 2005 musical comedy film based on The Producers musical by Mel Brooks and Thomas Meehan, and The Producers by Mel Brooks. Again, this was the pre Mean Girls Color Purple and Hairspray, I guess, where it was a movie and then it was a musical and then it was a movie musical.
Yes.
Yeah. And we were doing this because we had talked about how we wanted to do episodes on producing, because we did our Business of Broadway episode, which was so much fun. And we have a fun episode next week where we're going to interview a producer. We're excited about that. And
we are excited.
Yes, it's
Sorry, I
very fun.
didn't know
It's a
you
yeah.
were waiting for
No,
me to
no,
respond.
no.
Yeah.
We had so much fun. We decided.
Oh, it
I
was
mean, we were gonna
awesome.
talk for like 40 minutes, and then ended up being like an
2
hour and a
hours
half, which was so
later.
much fun.
Yeah.
So will get that in your feeds next week, and it's so much fun. And we decided to push that up, and you guys will hear why next week,
Mhm.
why we decided to
Mhm.
push these episodes up. And Rachel was like, "It would be so fun if we did the producers before that one." So that's why we're doing this, and it's so much fun.
It is
This
fun.
show, this movie is just wild. It's so wild.
Um,
Yeah.
it's so wild.
Mhm. Mhm.
I was telling Tay asked me before we recorded if I've seen this movie or if we've seen this movie before, and Tay said
Mhm.
he'd seen it once before, and I said I know I've seen it at least once before. This was the first time I watched for content, and I really meant that. Like I was like,
Amazing. Have you ever
oh,
seen it live?
oh, no. Have you ever seen this show
No,
done?
no, I haven't
Mm.
either. They did it in Richmond, I think, once, like at like Dogwood Dell or something.
How many years
And
ago? That's my real
no, I
question.
don't even know, because it's been
Mhm.
around a long time. It's been around over 20 years. So I mean, and the musical, the movie has been around way longer than that. But
Mhm.
not this
Mhm.
movie, the regular movie, not the musical movie.
Mhm.
This is what I'm saying.
Mhm. The
Um,
movie, musical
this
movie.
movie was released on December 16th, 2005. Would you like to guess the critic Rotten Tomato score, Rachel?
78.4.
No, it is lower than that.
Okay.
It is
Oh.
51%. I know. I know.
Wow, that makes
So
sense to me.
crazy.
That makes sense to me though.
Yeah, it does. It does. And then the audience score is 63%.
Oh wow. That's lower than I
So,
thought it would be.
yeah.
Okay. So I was gonna say the whole time I was watching this movie, I just was thinking this could never be done now. This could never be
That's what
done
I was going
now.
to ask you. That was one of the first things, is that, like,
I
do you
just
think
kept thinking
this could
it.
have been
No,
done now?
I
I
literally
know.
kept thinking it. Like, because
Mhm.
at first you're like, oh, ha ha ha, hee hee, like the
Yeah.
opening scene after the opening number, the opening scene is this. First of all, wait, I do want to just quickly go over the layout that I saw very interesting at the beginning. That once again, when I'm looking for content, I didn't. This was my first time
Mhm.
noticing. So you literally open with an opening number like talking
Mhm.
about the flop that has happened. And then the
Right. Hamlet
first,
musical. Right.
yeah, funny boy. But then the first scene is
So
a
good.
very, very, very long scene of dialogue
Yeah.
until you
Mhm.
get to the song at the very end of that scene that transitions them to the next part. But it's a very long straight dialogue.
Mhm.
It's one of the longest parts of straight dialogue it maybe is the longest part of straight dialogue in
Right.
the entire movie.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I found that fascinating because I'm like, this is a musical, right? Because you kind of like open with that
Right.
musical number and then you're like, what? But I
Mhm.
will say, the first scene is like weird and there's a lot of things and and
Say, would you
Leo
categorize
Bloom.
this movie as campy?
No, no,
No.
no. I think it's insulting, and that's why I think it works. I think it's like sketch
Mhm.
comedy, where and like
Yeah.
slapstick comedy, like it works for a certain period of time, and then it doesn't work. Um,
Mhm.
and like
Mhm.
Leo Bloom's character, he's clearly like he's playing up his anxiety, but also in a way that like potentially is if it was trying to represent someone who's maybe I mean, we didn't have words for this when the original
Mhm.
production was written, but like if someone was on the autism spectrum, like there's just a
Right.
lot of
Right.
things where it's all play
It's over
everything is played.
exaggerated.
Yes,
Right.
everything is the whole movie, everything's over exaggerated, play
Mhm.
for laughs. But the first scene, I'm like, okay, this is a lot, but I feel like if we made just slightly different choices, we could deal with it. Like basically the guy sleeping
Mhm.
with the women, old women, to
Mhm.
swindle them out of
Mhm.
money.
Mhm.
I'm like, we could do this, and then you get basically to the point where you get to the play of what they're gonna get,
Mhm.
and the whole
Yeah.
show, the whole rest of the show, I'm like, we couldn't do it. We couldn't do the majority of it. We couldn't even
Yeah.
change it enough to do it in this current
Mhm. Mhm.
day and age. Even if it was a
Mhm.
revival, I don't think we could do it.
Yeah. I wonder. Well, first of all, what was your first introduction to this show? Like, do you remember? We talked about it a little bit because I believe we did the Tonys rewind of this when this
Yeah.
swept the Tony Awards in
Yes.
2001.
Yes.
The biggest Broadway smash in like 20 years, basically.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know if I even I wonder if I just like knew who Nathan Lane was and then like researched what he had been in and then I found the producers, but I don't even know if I remember how I found this show or this movie.
I can't remember if King of Broadway or I Want to Be a Producer, which
Mm-hmm.
song was I this is a job for my mother. She still has this 4-disc CD, but it was like the best of Broadway from like
Mm-hmm.
1970
Mm-hmm.
to 2000, like to 2005 or 2010 or something. I don't remember when it was, through the decades,
Mm-hmm.
but it had like Jesus Christ Superstar stuff on there, and it had um Les Mis, and
What's
it
the
but it
buzz?
had it had the buzz, but it had one, like it had the hit song from all these
Mm-hmm.
shows, and I know that one of these songs was on, like one song from the show was on there, but I
Right.
don't think I really knew anything about the producers until people started to reference the producers.
Mm-hmm.
Like it
Mm-hmm.
become you will notice maybe now in some musicals that have their roots to musical theater that there's somehow a reference to the show or the
Mm-hmm.
craziness of the show. Like even how the prom movie musical was filmed is the
Yeah.
beginning of how this show was filmed, which is
Yeah.
really fun. Like that's really I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
That's interesting.
like
Yeah.
even in Something Rotten, there's a
I was
joke
gonna say
about the
something on.
producers.
Yeah.
So it
Mm-hmm.
just became a part of it. And like at some point, I watched this movie, and once again, watched the
Mm-hmm.
movie just to watch the movie as a movie
Mm-hmm.
musical, probably as a
Mm-hmm.
10, 11-year-old, was not watching for content, did not fully
11-year-old.
understand. I mean, you don't
Yeah.
understand. You're just like, cool. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get it. I also didn't understand the
Mm-hmm.
severity of like making a joke at certain thing. And you have to
Right.
remember, like cancel culture, all of that did not exist yet when this movie
Right.
was made,
Right.
and also did not exist
I
the
mean,
first time I
Twitter
watched
didn't
it.
really even exist. Yeah.
Right. So I'm just
Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg was just writing his algorithm on the Windows or whatever, like, for
yeah.
Facebook. Like,
So that was maybe my first introduction, was really whichever song was on that best hits of
hmm
best 4-disc. It was 4-disc. I remember it very
best,
well.
did you say best hits of Broadway?
Best
That's what I heard.
hits.
I think the show is
Nathan Lane,
influencing you a
best
little bit.
hits of Broadway.
Yeah, he does. Or actually, really, Gary Beach has the best hits of Broadway. Really, is really who. Oh my
Honestly, yeah.
goodness. Yeah.
Anyway, okay.
It's funny that so we were 4 years old when the musical had premiered on Broadway.
Mhm.
We were 9 when the movie came out, so we were not the target demographic for the show. Yeah.
Obviously. Rated PG-13 when it
Yeah.
came out, but
Yeah.
should it be rated
Yeah.
R maybe?
I mean, content wise though, it's not like graphic. It's not like, I don't know. The MPAA is, we could do, I mean, again, we're not a movie podcast, but we could do a whole episode on MPAA, on censorship. You can get away with a lot more too on stage than you can in a movie, which is kind of wild.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
see at Spring Awakening, at
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 see examples.
the Book of Mormon, at
Yeah.
yeah.
That was a good one.
But yeah, I must have watched this. I think I watched this. Now I remember when I was like sick and I got it from the library, and I remember like I was like,
That's
oh,
awesome.
this is a musical. I should watch this. And I vaguely remember being like quarantined in my attic and like watching this, and being like, this is fun. But again, like yeah, you don't think of
You're not thinking about it.
yeah, you're just like, oh, this is, and my favorite number, which we will talk about very soon, is, I think, is so hysterical. I still laugh at it to this day. And honestly, it's a scene that I will go back and watch on YouTube because I think it's so funny. So freaking funny. And I did, that's another thing I want to talk about. Like I did laugh throughout the movie, but there were also some
Oh
things where I
yeah.
was like like, oh, that's that, I know you're it's supposed to be funny, but that's not funny. But I think some of that is like just Mel Brooks humor. And I think Mel Brooks, who is like 94 years old. The other thing I want to talk about also, Mel Brooks recently got an honorary Oscar at the Governor's Awards, and Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick were there. Have you seen this video, Rachel? Where they
Mm.
sang lot of the songs from the producers, and it was kind of awkward because they were like on a stage, not not about they were singing as themselves, but they were singing the producer. It was kind of weird. I'll put it in the show notes, but
That is weird.
um,
Okay.
it was strange. But they were honoring Mel there, and also they
That's
look
sweet.
like a lot older, so that's it was interesting. Matthew Broderick sounding ever like an angel as ever. His voice is amazing. Nathan obviously hasn't done a musical in a while, so he was a little a little phlegmy. I'm not gonna
A
lie.
little flammy. He ate too many salty potato chips before he went on stage.
Yeah, had too much chocolate milk, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, so I think a lot of this is still funny, and I think there's some things that you could like. Sometimes, at least for me personally, I'm like, if it is offensive, as if it's funny, then I think a lot of people can forgive it. But I think it depends. Obviously, like I'm if I'm not a part of that group that joke is about, then obviously I can't comment on it. It's not about me. But like obviously I'm not Jewish, so I can't comment on like, oh, is making a musical about Hitler and joking about him, is that funny? Like
Yeah.
it's very I don't know, but that's specifically
Mhm.
not the part I'm talking about. I think yeah, the whole part about the show is like a lot. It's a lot, but I think there are moments of it that are like so funny, and I think you maybe could do today. But I think overall as a whole, I'm like
Mhm.
no, no.
Okay, let's talk quickly about the plot. Really quick, let's sum it up for someone who's never
Hmm.
seen the producer's movie musical or movie musical.
Well, before just briefly, have you seen the
Hmm.
original, the black and white Gene Wilder? Have you seen
Yes,
that one?
movie.
I have
Hmm.
not.
Okay.
So, is it? I think is it it's very similar. It's like basically
Pretty
the same.
similar. It's not the
Okay.
same, but it's pretty similar.
Yeah. Not a musical. Right.
Yeah. A lot of the jokes don't land
Right.
for
But it's
me
from the
personally.
50s.
Right.
So, right.
I'm not saying it didn't land before. I'm just telling
Yeah.
you.
So,
Okay,
as
tell
we've
them the plot.
mentioned, yeah, as we've mentioned, the movie opens up where Max Bialystock is like this famed Broadway producer who has lots of flops and he makes money from them. And Leo Bloom comes into his office and he's an accountant, and he's basically like, you're going to owe a lot of money to the IRS. And Max is like, why don't you become a producer and we'll basically make this the flop. And well, I guess Leo is like, well, what you could do is like budget the musical for more money, and then you if it flops you could keep that money, is
Yeah,
basically
so
right.
yeah, because so Max Bialystock at the beginning, the producer Nathan Lane, um, he has been making all of these flops, but he's not trying to make flops. He's trying to be successful, and
Yes.
he is swindling all of these
Old
older
women,
women to
which is a
write him
funny
checks,
plot
which is
point.
so funny, but also
Yeah.
so gross.
Yeah.
And but right, to like give him all this money so he can produce
But
his
again,
next
another joke
production.
that like could have been so graphic, but it's not, and it's just so funny. I feel
Yes,
like. Yeah.
fair. Uh I have my own thoughts about it, but
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
doesn't matter any in this
Yeah.
moment. So we're just talking about the plot. So that happens, and then he hires Leo Bloom as the CPA, or no, as a accountant. He's not a CPA.
Mhm.
That's also a plot point. But
It's a
anyway,
plot point.
and Leo Bloom's doing the books, and he's basically saying there's money missing. You're gonna owe the IRS money because
Mhm.
you made more, you raised more money than your
Mhm.
production required because it was a
Mhm.
flop and you didn't need to keep money coming in,
Mhm.
and it closed on opening night. Um,
Which is crazy.
and then Leo devises this plan, but he doesn't realize it's a plan. He's just kind of thinking out loud. And Max Bialystock is like, "Oh, we're doing that. We're going to find the
Mhm.
worst play ever, make it the
Mhm.
musical, put it on stage, and we're going to raise so much money, and we're gonna
Mhm.
know that our show's gonna close and open on the same night, and then we're gonna get all the money. We're gonna move things around in the
Mhm.
books and get all the money." Well,
Mhm.
Max Bialystock is like, "Yeah, that's what we're gonna do," and Leo Bloom is like, "Wait a second, I don't really want to do that."
Right.
And there's this like song and dance literally moment where he goes back to his accounting place and is like, I hate it here. I want to be a Broadway producer, and realizes that Max Bialystock has given him that opportunity, but for a price of fudging the numbers.
Right.
And so,
And
and
that's,
then
yeah, and you find, yeah, that's been like a secret dream of Leo Bloom's, that he wants to be
yes,
a producer for his entire life.
and
And then
then so he
they find
agrees,
this
and
play
mhm,
about, it's called Springtime for Hitler. And what's also funny is that, because this is set, it's said in the Wikipedia page, which I don't think they explicitly say, but you kind of get from like the costumes and the whatever,
it's
and
set
the
in the
when the show is
50s,
running in the 59. So like this is very close to, there are people
the
that fought
end
in
of
World
World
War
War
II.
II.
There's
Yep,
definitely people, yeah.
yep.
And they find a play called Springtime for Hitler. They get the rights from the writer, who's played by Will Ferrell. So crazy.
It's
The
amazing.
pigeons, I can't.
Not the Heil Hitler pigeons.
I know, I know. Who was played by Mel Brooks. I don't know if you knew that. Mel
Content
Brooks,
warning: anti-Semitism
yeah, I know.
in this musical.
Yes, true. And then they hire the director, Roger Debris. So good.
He's so good.
Yeah. And then
Played by Gary Beach, yeah.
they, yeah, played by Gary Beach. And then they randomly hire an actress who's also there, becomes their assistant, Ula, played by Uma Thurman. Uma, so
I
crazy.
know it's very hard.
Um
Who ends up
and
and ends up with Leo Bloom.
yes, who ends up with Leo as a love interest. And then they put on the musical, and it's like a huge hit. Surprise! And then they basically are going to go to jail, and then they have a trial at the end, and they, through the force of love and friendship, don't go to jail. I guess Max goes to jail, but Leo goes to Rio.
Leo escapes. He ends
Yes,
up winning the whole thing.
correct. Yeah, yeah. And then yeah, and then it is a wild comedy farce. It's very. I think one of the things I will say is that I don't think a lot of the things that work on stage and what made it a huge hit on stage works for the movie. That's, I think,
Slapstick comedy number
yes, the
one.
slapstick comedy. And I felt like they were like doing a comedic beat, and they were like waiting for the laughter and the
Mhm.
and the
Mhm.
and the claps and everything that they got
Mhm.
on the stage, and then they would do something else, or like things were just so over the top that I was like, this just doesn't feel real, which I guess is like Mel Brooks in general, but I feel like
Yes.
it's funnier on
I was gonna
stage.
say
Maybe I'm
Young
wrong, but
Frankenstein. No,
yeah.
I'm sure it is funnier on stage. I think you also aren't thinking about one thing I will say about any musical that has a musical or a play inside of the musical.
Hmm.
That is already hard enough,
Yeah.
but you normally are seeing the
Joan
musical
Still.
Jones, but that's the movie. Yeah, that's the movie.
Yeah.
So, but I'm thinking like Phantom of the Opera, like
Right.
or there are plenty of others. I just that's the first thing that comes to mind. But typically, you're seeing a show happen, and you're seeing the reaction to that show as an audience member. You're seeing both at the same time. What's
Hmm.
happening here is you're seeing the show and the audience sort of, but like not all at once, and in a
Hmm.
way that like completely, I think, makes the this is crazy, this is all for the plot of the stage show kind of feel flat. And that's when you're like, this feels actually offensive. At some point
Hmm.
you're like, oh, this isn't funny anymore. And I think that
Right.
that's your whole thing about the stage or the slapstick comedy, which in the first scene, which has so much dialogue, there is so
Hmm.
much slapstick comedy, and
Hmm.
it's so over the top, and I'm sure it was super funny. Like I'm thinking
Yeah.
like the Three Stooges are very funny for that
Hmm.
kind of comedy,
Hmm.
but it doesn't read in the same way
No, and
as
the
it
energy of
might.
Nathan and Matthew on stage is probably I mean, it's
Yeah.
similar to here, but you're feeling the energy. You're not like just watching it and being like, it's there's a disconnect.
And I think that's partly when you're like the lack of being able to turn to people in the audience and be like, is this, when people are hiling Hitler, is this funny or is this terrible, or am I supposed to
The
feel
birds.
uncomfortable? And that's part of it, especially the
Yeah.
birds. But then you get to people. I mean, they warm you up with birds, and then you get
Yeah.
to people and you see swastikas. I'm just like,
Yeah.
this is a lot. There,
Mm-hmm.
I think that was my biggest takeaway. I'm all for comedy and sketch comedy, which is basically what this
Right.
is. This is sketch comedy built with
Right.
music and a musical and
Mm-hmm.
one big comedy adventure, add in slapstick, which is a lot to do.
Yeah.
But I'm all here for comedy, and sketch comedy being political or being rude or
Mm-hmm.
being gross, which is why SNL works.
Mm-hmm.
But
We will
but
talk about
I
that later.
but
SNL.
um but I think the hard part is that this issue about Hitler and
Mm-hmm.
Germany and anti-Semitism and World War II and the Holocaust, like that's a big thing. We're making
Yeah.
fun of all of it
Right.
basically.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an issue that still exists in 2024, whatever year we're in, 2024.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot. Like, there is now a lot more history also. This is still relevant. The political issues that are issues in World War II are still issues we have in 2024, even though the war is over.
Yeah.
And so I want to say that I think that that's what makes this very uncomfortable, is
Mm-hmm.
if this was a different group of people or an issue that felt a little bit more resolved, we could feel uncomfortable but still laugh at it. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
any of these things are resolved, or they're back to not being resolved. Now, my
I
caveat
don't think
is
anti-Semitism, unfortunately, will ever be resolved.
no, but what I'm
But
saying is like the idea of this being a political forefront. Like,
mm-hmm.
like the gay jokes, like I think that they're funny. And I think it's partly funny because there are a bunch of gay men saying
Right.
them. And
Yes.
it's funny.
Exactly.
Like that really is, and
Mm-hmm.
musical theater, that is funny to
Mm-hmm.
me. Is it appropriate? No, but is it funny? Sure. I think we could still do
Mm-hmm.
that song. I think there's some
Yeah.
other things we could still do. The drag moment. Like, I think all of that is,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm not fine, but I think it's
Right.
doable in the sense of comedy. It's like
Mm-hmm.
this, there are big choices that are big parts of the show
Yeah.
that it would be really hard to take away and still have the show be the
Well,
show.
I do think like anti-Semitism was a thing in 2001 as well.
Yeah, but we
And
weren't actively in a war about it.
true, true. And I think social media was not a thing, so that's another reason why I think
Yeah.
things are a little bit more heightened now because we
Well, we
see
couldn't
and
have a
hear.
context. I think
Yeah,
that this would be blown out. There would be no context. When people
right,
put
right,
things on TikTok and you're like, where is
right.
this?
It's all
Like, where is
headlines
this?
now. It's not
Well,
right.
and where is this like
Yeah,
sound bite from? And then you realize it's from
right,
someone washing their car and it has nothing to do with
right.
anything. But I
Oh, I
think
hate those.
but I think that one thing I will say is Will's character, what's his name? Can you tell
Will's
me his name
character.
kind of? Yeah, Will. The guy who wrote the musical, the play. I
Oh,
can't
Mel
tell him.
Brooks.
No, no, no. The character in the
Oh,
movie.
oh, oh, oh. Will Ferrell.
Yeah, but I just can't remember his
Yes.
character's name.
Franz Liebkind.
Okay, if Franz Liedkin was the only one who was
Oh my goodness.
Winnie.
Winnie. Winifred.
Winifred.
Winnie. Oh, I can't. I don't want to get up because all my stuff's gonna be knocked over. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I don't know what's worse, your cat or my dog. Your cat's at my dog. Come. Come. Hey. Here we go. There's people outside, so she's barking at them. Okay, yes. Franz
Well,
Liebkind.
if Franz was the only character who was like super in love with Hitler and like
Mm-hmm.
really into that, and like the songs related to him were the only songs about Hitler, it would work. We could
Mm-hmm.
still do it today, is what I mean. Like because it's one character. It's just such a formative part of the whole show. And I mean,
high on
I'm not.
myself. I mean,
Yeah, I just think that it's when you make a joke too. I'll give you the perfect example in current day that my experience, and Beetlejuice changed it. The first time I saw Beetlejuice, all of the musical, all of the characters made really crude jokes about sex.
mm-hmm,
Every
mm-hmm,
single one.
mm-hmm,
They changed that when they went to Broadway because it was too much.
mm-hmm.
But it's okay if it's one character or two characters thing. It's their thing. So it's okay and you feel more comfortable
Right.
because you're like that's that character.
Mm-hmm.
This is like a big part of the plot. Now I get that it's a satire, and that's the whole point is that they think it's going to be
Right.
so offensive that it's going to be a flop.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying anyone on this production team or like the
Right.
producers itself are trying to
Well,
be
Mel Brooks is
anti-Semitic.
Jewish. I
No,
mean,
I know, and that's why it's funny, and they're
right.
Jewish actors singing about Hitler, and
Right.
it's very funny, and I
Yes.
think it's funny. But I'm just
Mm-hmm.
saying I don't think we could do it in 2024.
Yeah. Right.
That was the
I mean,
point.
could you imagine like a producer's revival in the same year like last year's like Parade? Like both of those.
No, that's what I'm saying. That is what
Yes.
I
Yes.
also think that people
Yeah.
can't when things are heightened, when things are serious, there can't be a comedy about it. When it's too serious, when people's lives feel like they're on the line, there's not
Mm-hmm.
really a space for a lot of comedy. When it's
Yeah.
when you think it
Mm-hmm.
is, when it's not really people's lives on the line and it's just like terrible, there can be space for comedy.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. For sure.
Yeah.
Let's transition. I just want to talk about the cast
Okay.
for a little bit.
Yes. Wow. What
It
a time.
starred most of the original cast of the Broadway musical, except for Brad Oscar and Katie Huffman. Brad Oscar playing Franz
Bronze.
um, Liebkind, who of course we've talked about, played by Will Ferrell. Brad Oscar was unable to reprise his role because he had signed on to play Max on Broadway in the Broadway run because it was still running on
That's
Broadway.
so crazy.
Um, I know. And apparently he has a small role as the cab driver in the movie. I did
Oh,
not notice. And Uma Thurman takes over as the role for Katie Huffman. Originally it was supposed to be Nicole Kidman,
yeah,
but
that's
she had
crazy.
to not do it due to scheduling conflicts. I think Nicole Kidman would have been
Scheduling
interesting.
conflict.
Uma Thurman wasn't. I mean, that role. I don't know how I feel about the Ula role in general. So
I hate
I mean,
it
we'll talk about it.
so much.
Yeah. Reprising their roles, of course, Nathan Lane, Matthew Broderick, Gary Beach, and Roger Bart. Honestly, they're all in these parts. Like they're all so perfect for them. I
Yeah.
think, and it's almost like they were made for them. Like I know there's the original movie, but like they're all so good in their parts. Kind of
Gary
wild.
Beach really takes a peak. Like he's
R.I.P. R.I.P. Gary Beach had played Lumiere in the original production of Beauty and the Beast, and now coming to the producers, so incredible in this role. I think he's so
yeah,
great,
he's so good.
so funny, so funny.
He is
Roger
very
Bart though
funny.
makes so many small choices, like
I
looks
know.
and just the way he holds himself, and it's so funny, so funny. This movie was budgeted at $45 million, and Rachel, do you know how much it
Wow.
made? It made
Um.
$35 million.
Oh no, that's
Big old
terrible.
flop, just like Funny Boy.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
terrible.
it's so
Wow.
bad. Some reviews I
That's a
found,
lot of
despite the
money.
rich,
45
I know
million.
it is. I mean, but the production numbers were huge. I mean, I Want to Be a
I
Producer
know.
alone probably cost 10 million.
This is so
Um,
crazy.
it's so crazy. Despite some reviews I found, despite the rich source material, the producers has a stale, saggy feel more suited to the theater than the big screen.
Hmm.
However, Roger Bart cited difficulty in reviewing the film due to his familiarity with the 1967 film. He did state that the new version was fun and gave it 3 out of 4 stars, said, "The new movie is a success that I know. How much of a success, I cannot be sure." This last one, I just had to mention this. This is crazy. Most negative reviews suggested that the performances were tuned more for the theater rather than the film. For film, Stephanie Zacharek, I don't know if that's how you say her name, but Stephanie observed, quote, "The producers is essentially a filmed version of a stage play in which none of the characters' expressions or line readings have been scaled down to make sense on screen. Every gesture is played out as if the actors were 20 feet away in real life, which means that by the time the performers are magnified on the big screen, they're practically sitting in your lap. The effect is something like watching a 3D IMAX film without special glasses."
Yeah.
I just love
That's
that.
good.
It's so
That's a
good.
good one. That's a good review.
Yeah.
I do agree. I mean, we kind of talked about that. Like, it just
Yeah.
feels a little over the top. I mean, part
Mhm.
of me loves the over the top numbers. Like, they just,
Mhm.
when they were committing, they really
Mhm.
committed to it.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of invested in that a little, but
Mhm.
I do think in terms of the scene work, we could have
Mhm.
toned it down.
Right.
And this is very different from Renee Rapp,
Yeah.
who completely, I mean, played the same character on stage,
Yeah.
not for very
Yeah.
long, but still, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
toned all of those things into a way that was the same meaning in the musical, but
Mhm.
toned it in a way that felt the same and very powerful in a
Mhm.
movie form, in a film form. And it does take, I mean, not everyone's a film actor,
Right. Right. Well, both
but both of
Matthew
them should have
and
been. Yeah,
Nathan
I
are
know.
film actors,
I
so yeah,
know.
it's very weird.
Yeah.
And Susan Stroman, director of the Broadway musical and director of the movie, I think
Yeah.
they were just like, well, the musical was a hit, so we're just gonna do the exact same thing.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it worked 100%. I do think it's a very faithful adaptation, though. Like everything is here that's from the original musical. I mean, as far as we know, we haven't seen it, but I mean, they didn't keep
Besides
three of
those
the
3
songs,
songs. Yeah.
right? But besides that, it's pretty faithful, I will say. Let's talk about the music now. That I mean, I will say the score is kind of a. There's some bangers in here. Like
Oh,
the
yeah.
score is like really good. It's kind of crazy.
Oh,
I mean, there's some
the
songs that I
musical
would take out,
numbers
but
the musical numbers are over the top, but, like, really
yeah.
great. It's so
Mhm.
good. Do you have a favorite or a least favorite song?
I mean, it's kind of also my MVP, so
Okay.
I don't know if I want to save it, but I'll
Okay.
just talk about some other ones that I love.
Okay. Mhm.
I do love, I mean, A King of Broadway, which is not in the movie, but Betrayed is amazing. Is the Nathan Lane, like him recounting basically the whole show in the jail cell. So good. I mean,
So
We Can
good.
Do It is so great.
We can do it.
And then they did this um on the Tony Awards. Is it the wait, where is it? I wanna Oh, Along Came Bialy. With all the old women and they're doing the tap
It's
dancing
so good.
with
That's
the
so good. With the
canes.
canes.
Oh, it's so good. It's
There
so good.
is an
And
unbelievable amount of tap dancing and clapping in this
mhm.
musical, and I'm
Mhm.
really here for it.
Yeah. There's lots of tapping.
Mhm.
But they're all fun. And then the Springtime for Hitler, the sequence of the musical is just so out of this world. The 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 show women with all their show uniform and the pretzel and then the bratwurst and then
No,
it was just
the
crazy. I was
basically like the Follies, but
mhm.
she's got
Yeah. Yeah.
bratwurst and
So good.
pretzels.
I was watching it and I was
Uh,
cracking up and then I had to show my wife. It's like, you need to watch this. And so she was like, oh my gosh, I cannot. And we both were like, I just can't believe they got away with this. Like, this is crazy.
isn't it
Yeah.
so crazy?
Yeah. I will say the song that they added to the musical, the movie, You Never Say Good Luck on Opening Night, is
Mhm.
not that great. I didn't love it. I was kind
I
of like,
didn't love it either,
yeah, yeah.
but I did like the idea of it. I did like the
Hmm.
idea of it.
Yeah, yeah.
It
And then
could have been a scene.
Till Him is great, and I think a great like love story moment between two men that you don't see very like two heterosexual, as far as we know,
Mm,
men that you don't really see that often in musical theater. So loved that.
that's good. I love that.
Hmm. What about you?
Um, all of my favorite songs are the most inappropriate songs. The songs where I was like, we could never do this show.
Like High
I
on
mean,
Myself.
obviously, yeah. Well, I Want to Be a Producer is one of the best songs from the musical writ large, but also anyway. But yeah, Der Guten Tag Hop Klop is so good. Like it shouldn't be. That's what my favorite part. Like it's really supposed to be comedy, and it's so funny, and like the song's kind of a bop, and you're like, it's like really. I just really loved it, and Will was. He was way better than I thought he would be. Obviously, I love Keep It Gay because I find it very funny and so ridiculous. And the butch lesbian coming in as the lighting designer is the absolute best part of the whole time. That he's going as Anastasia, like that also is so funny to me. So many bits about that. But yeah, Heil Myself is probably one of my
so
favorite.
good. What ends up happening? Will Ferrell's character is supposed to be Hitler, and then gets like drops out or like gets hurt.
He gets hurt. He because
he
they
hurt.
said good luck to him.
Right.
And then they say break a leg, and then he actually does, which is why I think that scene's pretty funny.
Yeah. And then Gary Beach's character as the director steps in and plays Hitler and is so funny. And that's when really the audience members turn into, oh, this show is actually funny, and the show within the show is funny.
Yeah.
And very interesting. I do love the cuts to the audience during the first part. Then they're just, and that's when my wife was laughing the most. When she'd be like, "That's me, that's me." It's so funny. Oh, it's just wild. It's so wild.
It really is. It really is something.
Yeah.
And then Prisoners of Love, when they reprise it, is not bad. It's not bad.
Yeah. Yeah. The dancing number of that face, the dance number is so good. Like I was just like, damn, this dancing is amazing. And obviously Suman Stroman is an incredible choreographer as well. Recently New York, one of my top 2023 albums of 2023.
A shock to us all.
Yes, a shock to the whole theater nerd community. And yeah, that dance number is great. And I love the part where they go behind the couch and they like keep going up, and then the old lady comes up. I've watched that sequence a couple of times before, and it gets me every single time. It is so funny. You do not see it coming every time, and it's just hilarious.
It's so good.
There's this bit of them like going behind a couch, and each of them will come up one time, and then together, and then an older woman comes up that you haven't seen for like 20 minutes.
To insinuate that they're all behind the couch having sex.
That you haven't seen it. It is so funny. I don't know why that part makes me laugh so much.
And that's the comedy. Like these are the comedic moments, the comedic moments that I think are supposed to be in that first really long dialogue scene that just are a miss because they're so over the top. And like not so over the top where you're like, this is hysterical funny. Like this is like no one's taking it seriously. But like this is like, are you good? Like, are you believing yourself here, or are we supposed to think you're funny?
I do think it's interesting. One thing that also doesn't hold up, and we talked a little bit about this with Love Actually on our Christmas movie episode, that I feel like that obviously this story is written by men, but it's so told through the male gaze, in my opinion, which is interesting because it's directed by a woman. But I think maybe that's the point of it. It's just like it's so sexual at times, and so like the women don't really matter to the story at all. Like they're just objects, really, which maybe again is a commentary on like the time period of the 50s. But
I think it's a commentary on Broadway producers.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I hadn't thought of that.
At the time, at least. Because Mel Brooks said he wrote this because he had experienced in his early years, he was working for a producer who was sleeping with women to get money. And not as like a prostitute, but like sleeping with his investors to get more money.
Right. That's wild. That's wild. Could you imagine this happening to like Great Gatsby
No.
producer? I'm not saying this is happening, but like the Great
But
Gatsby producer, it comes
this
out
is
that
why
he's sleeping with
Smash
a bunch of
was
old
such
women.
a big thing too, right? Like because the
Yeah.
director is like sleeping like the like
Mhm.
I think one part of
Mhm.
comedy that we haven't really touched on is that the whole show is supposed to be a satire or a comedy or a commentary or some combination of that, of how ridiculous it is that this idea of producers and the protection that producers
Mhm.
have and like what we think producers
Mhm.
are and how producers think that
Right.
they are, right? Like having lunch
Mhm.
at Sardi's every day is one line that I love so
Yeah.
much from the
I want to
Leo
be a
Bloom
producer.
song I Want to Be a Producer. But I just right like I think it is like this over dramatized moment of like a reality check of this is also what people do think or
Mhm.
do even. Like this
Mhm.
source material came from somewhere.
Yeah,
And so I think that that's part of why it's funny and also part of what it's trying to say or do.
for sure. For sure. And probably why it connected. I mean, it does feel like a very New York
Yes.
story too,
Yes.
which may be
Right.
why it didn't connect with
The general
audiences,
audience.
the general audience. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, this movie got nominated for 4 Golden Globes, and I think that's only because there is a musical and comedy section. I think if there wasn't, I don't know if it would have. But it got Best Musical or Comedy, Best Actor in a Musical or Comedy, Nathan Lane. No Matthew Broderick Love, which is sad. Best Supporting Actor, Will Ferrell. Best Original Song for that new song. You Never Say Good Luck on Opening Night, which is wild. Did not get any Oscar love. Not surprising. Um, yeah, I don't know. Awards. There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, there we
Wait,
go.
do you have an MVP or did you already say it with your song or no?
I did not say my MVP. We can do,
You want to do
yeah.
your biggest
What's it?
L or your MVP?
I'll do well. I'll do my biggest L. I'm sure
Okay.
you might be surprised by this because of what you were saying earlier. Well, my biggest L is Will Ferrell for me. I
Really?
think he's kind of miscast. Maybe not miscast in the way that like he is doing very over the top and Will Ferrell is over the top. I do think it's funny like we're still talking about Will Ferrell to this day. I mean, this movie came out like almost 20 years ago, and like he's in Barbie.
He's
Like we're
still
still talking
relevant.
about him. He's
Yeah.
at Sundance. He produced a documentary about his friend who came out as trans, and he's talking all about the
And he did
trans
Spirited
community.
last
Yeah,
year or whatever it was.
yeah,
Yeah, 2
yeah.
years ago.
Spirited, right. So like I do think that's interesting that like he's a lasting figure within the entertainment pop culture.
Yeah, from SNL.
Um yes, from SNL. But that's my point is that all of his scenes to me just kind of feel like an SNL sketch and they don't feel like and maybe that's just like the character and
I
like
think,
the
yeah.
vibe of the but to me I was like, "Oh, this just feels like Will Ferrell doing an SNL sketch, not like this is the character." And I think it would have been I think they should have like tried to make it work that Brad Oscar could have been in it because literally everyone and
Mhm.
Katie Huffman. I think Uma Thurman is funny, but I'm like, if you're gonna get basically the original cast, like get
Just
every
get the
but
original
it
cast.
feels like the studio being and I know obviously he was doing it on Broadway, but it feels like the studio being like, oh, there's no big names in this really. You need to get someone that people know. And so they got Elf.
But it was 2001, so how big of a name was he in comparison to other
Well,
things?
2004 is probably when they filmed it.
Oh, 2005. Yeah,
So,
sorry.
yeah, yeah,
That's right.
yeah. And I mean, he had done SNL and Elf had already come
Yeah,
out. I
F
think
had
Elf
come
was
out. You're right.
2004.
You're right.
So,
Yeah.
like, he was a pretty
Yeah.
big deal. He wasn't, and I think his like Anchorman had already come out, I think. So, and that was
I've
huge
never
for
seen that
him.
movie.
I've never seen
Yeah.
it either, but I know it's huge. So, it's a big film with him. So
Yeah,
that's my
that I
big
mean,
L.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
I think that that's the character. I also think that that's what makes it not feel so cringy to watch him do it
Mhm.
is that I think it is a bit and that's why I think it's very funny.
Yeah.
And then you get to the musical and I'm like, "Oh god.
Mhm.
No
Mhm.
one thinks this is a bit yet." And no
Yeah.
one like it
Yeah.
feels like I know it is,
Mhm.
but I think it's harder.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think I laughed more at like the birds than I did at Will Ferrell, and because I was just like, eh.
The
But
birds were so
the birds
good.
made me laugh. They made me
The
laugh a lot. I was like, they're
birds
so
were
funny.
so funny.
Yeah, yeah. What's
Funny.
your big L?
My big L, um, my big L is
The whole movie, the whole concept.
I really struggle with the Uma Thurman, like
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
moment, especially specific her character, not her as a person. God, I hit the
yeah.
microphone twice. But her as a person, her as a character, not her as a person.
Where's the
Let
person?
me back up.
No,
And
we're keeping all this in. We're keeping all this in.
yeah, and I think the moment where I get the most uncomfortable is actually when she's finished painting the room. But I mean, just because the scene is
I
very
skipped my
uncomfortable,
lunch.
I skipped my lunch. And anyway, but I think the erection part is, I'm like, we needed to either make this funnier
Mm-hmm.
so that I
Mm-hmm.
didn't feel like we were
Mm-hmm.
fully
Mm-hmm.
objectifying
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
It was just like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not afraid of, once again, like that kind of comedy. Just that was the
Right.
biggest L. It did not translate. It did not hit me. I did not find that whole part funny,
Mm-hmm.
and it could have been more funny. And I will say, in a similar vein of like making fun of women or belittling women,
Mm-hmm.
what I do find funny is when Leo Bloom has those chorus girls in I Want to Be a Producer, and then there's the one who doesn't look like a chorus girl, and he's
Yeah.
kind of like,
Yeah.
bye. I think that that's funny. I know
I
that
believe
that's
that actress plays the butch lesbian as well. It's the
yes,
same
it's the
actress.
same person.
Just
But what I'm
freaking
so
hilarious.
good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
good. But what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying is like I know that that's belittling women. So it's not the fact that I'm
Mm-hmm.
worried about or like
Right.
don't like comedy around that.
Offended by
It's specifically that scene did not translate to the biggest
yeah.
L for me.
Well, that is more. Yeah, I think that bit is funnier than like let's
It is,
sexualize everything.
yeah, it is very
But
funny. It's
yeah.
like a commentary both of
Yeah.
what people
Mm-hmm.
want and also what's the acceptable chorus girl, and I find it funny.
Yeah.
And just the
Yeah.
physical comedy of it is funny.
Did you like the line we're sitting down, but Ula, we're giving
We're
in our
giving you a
hearts, we're
standing
giving standing
ovation.
ovation.
That part's funny.
Okay, good. I laughed out loud
Yeah.
at that line. I was like,
It
that
was
is so funny.
That's
Yeah.
funny, but
Hmm.
it's the next scene. It's that scene
Yes.
between the two of
Yes.
them. That is
Hmm.
very comfortable.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. The whole character is kind of uncomfortable. I will say
Yes.
it's kind of
Yes.
uncomfortable.
It is.
It's
Yeah, I
like,
agree.
ooh, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
What's your MVP?
My MVP is something so
MVP.
ridiculously weird. It is
I'm
the
ready.
transition between oh god, what's the song that the accountants sing?
I want to.
Uh
Unhappy,
yeah, that part.
unhappy. Yeah.
It's when
Hmm.
they start saying that into that transition into I want to be a producer and then back into
Hmm.
that song.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Honestly,
Hmm.
genius.
Hmm.
It is so good.
Hmm.
It is quintessential musical for me because and it's what
It's
Wonka
very
was
thoroughly
trying.
modern, Millie.
Yes, but it's
Yeah.
what Wonka was trying to do with that working
Yes.
song.
Hmm.
It is
Hmm.
where it's like we're
Yeah.
establishing that actually everyone is
Hmm.
singing and it's
Trying to do
normal
is
to
the
be
key word there.
singing. Yeah. It's normal to be singing in this space and then he's having a dream sequence where he's singing
Hmm.
something completely different, has this
Hmm.
whole musical number, but then doesn't come back to completely break it. He's still back in that same
Hmm.
song that they're all
Hmm.
singing. It is one of the most first of all, it's great. Second of all, it is like quintessential musical for me. And
Hmm.
I think it's so good. And just the staging of that. And I did have to look up why they were wearing green visors. I figured it out. But
Why are they?
so at this time period, the incandescent light bulb was new.
Oh,
And
interesting.
it was a strain on their eyes with the very white paper. And so
What a world we're
accountants
living
and
in.
secretaries used to have to wear visors,
Oh my gosh. Wow. Could you
green
imagine?
visors. Well, that's what glasses, like blue light
Like, what if
glasses
I was?
are.
I mean, I have a ring light staring at me right now, and could you imagine if I was just like wearing a little visor
Or you would have
the
to
whole
wear like
time?
blue light glasses. It's the same
Right.
thing.
That's true. Updated version. I have
Not
worn
as
blue light
sexy.
glasses. Not as sexy. No, I think glasses are more sexy than a visor.
I don't know.
That's great. I love that. One comment on the Ula character. Ula, again, they're interchangeable.
Again, it's very
hard. Is does she know that they're being filmed? The character? Do you remember that joke about her being like, "Why are you standing so far right to the camera?" or whatever? And I was like, "Wait, this is kind of funny, but also what?"
Did we just break the fourth wall? I
Yes,
literally
yes,
almost texted you. We broke the fourth
yeah.
wall.
Like
Yeah.
what?
Which Mean Girls the
Wild.
musical did also.
True. My MVP is again my favorite song in the show, "Keep It Gay." And it's that whole sequence at the director's house. The entire sequence
good.
like is so brilliant. Gary Beach and Roger Bart are just incredible. I believe either one or both of them won a Tony for their performance. I could be wrong. I know Gary Beach did, but I don't know about Roger Bart. And it is just it's so freaking funny. Every single part of it to me is so funny. When they introduce all the production staff is hilarious. They're just so fun. Again, Rachel was mentioning the lighting designer as the butch lesbian is so funny.
All these stereotypical gay men come out. And I don't just mean like they're one kind of stereotype. They are all not all of them, but they are representing stereotypes of gay men. And the last one is the lighting designer. And it's a butch lesbian.
So funny.
So
and then what's her name? Like, oh my gosh, what's her name? Like
I don't know.
Wait, we need to look this up.
I laughed so hard because that sequence it's building. It keeps building. And then he puts the wig on right after that. And it's so good.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. And yeah, and it's funny because I think in the time period there, Leo and Max are like, they're not making fun of all these people. And they're not making fun of Gary Beach's character wearing a dress, but they are a little uncomfortable by it. But I think that's the time period. But they're still like accepting, and I think that's telling of it. And I think that's interesting. But also they're in a Broadway world, so I think that's a little more like they know that like there are gay people in the Broadway community.
The joke is that the song is the joke.
Right.
And so that's why it's just partly funny too.
So well performed, so well executed, and I think it's maybe the best like sequence of. I mean, I Want to Be a Producer is fun and all that, but like Keep It Gay is just so well executed as from the musical. It's so good. The other little part I do want to mention is not like a full MVP, but the part in We Can Do It when they get in the car and they're both singing. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
They're both singing on top of each other and they're like that part in particular, I don't know why, but just musically I'm like, this is so good. The car, I mean, obviously they're on a green screen, like you can tell they're on a green screen, but the singing part, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Yeah, 2005. This movie came out very close to The Chronicles of Narnia, Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe, and that CGI was a lot better. So yeah, that's my MVP. Is Keep It Gay. Good. So good. It's so good. I do want to mention this fun fact before we ask our last two questions.
Okay.
On February 28th, 2016, a 5-minute short film serving as a sequel to The Producers entitled Trumped was released on Jimmy Kimmel Live with Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick reprising their roles as Max and Leo. The film follows Bialystok and Bloom having formed their own political consultant business, which has since fallen on hard times. Bloom realizes that under the right circumstances, more money can be made from a losing candidate than a winner. They choose Donald Trump as a candidate only for him to become a political phenomenon.
That's funny. I need to watch that.
It's actually hilarious. I have not watched it. I just saw this blurb. So we will link it in our show notes. But that is,
we're gonna watch it.
Talk about something like this being in the modern day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I think we could do this kind of show. I just don't know if it could be with the play Springtime for Hitler.
Right. For sure. Springtime for Trump, I guess. Rachel, could have James Corden been in this movie musical, and what role could he have played?
Unfortunately, absolutely, he could have been.
I mean, in another life, like, I mean, in 15 years, we'll see James Corden as Max Bialystock on Broadway.
Yeah. I think I actually, of course that's the first thing you think is that he's going to be Max, but then I thought,
Right.
okay, actually I think he could be Will Ferrell's character. Um Franz. And I think that would be pretty funny. Or he could be oh shoot. I think he could be Carmen.
That's the character I was thinking. Not to put, we've mentioned, as Rachel's mentioned, that James Corden plays every gay character. Although as I've mentioned, he's only played one in The Prom. That's the only gay character he's played. But it does feel like more. But he
it feels like 9 bajillion, in case you were wondering.
Cinderella, the mouse, was he gay? Who knows? But I do think him as Roger Bart's character Carmen would be funny. I think he could. Although I think the problem with that is that I think he would do it even more over the top, and I think Roger Bart plays it like the perfect amount.
So well. Yeah. But I think if we were thinking about casting, right? If we were thinking about casting now, that's who they would have cast for this, and you're like, boo.
What do you think about him playing Leo though? Like that would be an interesting change for him. You know who I think is a modern Leo is Ben Platt.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
Oh, I could see
that. Could we do? What if we did
Daniel Radcliffe?
Oh yeah, Daniel Radcliffe is a good one.
Both of those are good. Those are good ones.
Yeah. What if we did like who's a modern Bialystock? I mean, obviously, I think people think of Andrew Rannells and Josh Gad, but I think that's a little too obvious. But
too obvious.
Who's a more modern Max Bialystock? I don't even know.
Couldn't Brian Darcy James?
But if we're doing Ben Platt as Leo, who's with?
Okay.
I don't even know.
I don't know. That's a hard one.
Like Alex Newell.
I don't know.
Alex or Jay Harrison G is and
maybe
and Ben Platt. I don't know.
That's a hard one.
I know.
Well, time will tell when we have this revival.
Exactly. Rachel, do we say that this is a La La Bland? Thumbs down, or are we La La fans? Thumbs up.
Can I be a La La meh?
Meh?
It's more on the up than the down. I don't think it's bland. If anything, the show is not bland.
True. It is the opposite of bland. It's very colorful.
It is the opposite of bland. But I'm not sure I'm a stan. I think I like it. I've seen it maybe 2 or 3 times now, and I maybe will watch it one more time in my life, and that'll be good.
I think I'm okay for a little while. I think for the sake of the question, I'm a bland, but I kind of agree with you that I'm in the middle. I think the songs make the show.
The songs make the show for sure. Yeah. You are so right.
Yeah, and I think
tap dancing
the show itself
pushes me. Yeah. Pushes me.
Right. Yeah, the numbers are great. But
the premise of the show is very funny.
Yeah, that's true.
So I also like that.
Tell us what you guys think of the producers. What's your favorite parts? Do you like the pigeons howling? Let us know.
But Taylor, you didn't mention what you say every Tony's Rewind, and that it's from this show.
Wait, what?
Tony's.
Yes, one of my favorite lines. Tony's is when he goes, he's having a stroke. What? Of genius. It's my favorite. It makes me laugh every time.
We have to put that bit in the show notes. I can't believe you didn't mention that.
Yeah, you're right. I'm just gonna put the whole Keep It Gay sequence in the show notes. It's so good. Just go watch it. It's so good. Fall asleep to it. Listen to it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks. Hey, it was so fun.
I wanna be a producer. All right, Rachel. Let's talk about our character of the week.
Let's do it. This is the time where Taylor and I think about what have we been feeling, what have we been up to this week, then we pick a theater character, thing, show, experience that's theater-y, and we name that as our character of the week.
That's right. We would also love to hear your thoughts on all of the casting that's been going on Broadway, all the shows opening, all the pictures of all the Once Upon a Mattress, Sutton Foster doing her thing, but also the producers, the movie musical that we just talked about for 2 hours.
That swept the nation, aka was a flop.
I mean, the musical swept the nation for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, we would also love to hear your characters this week. Comment on our social media pages. Tell us who you are this week. Who are you feeling? What are your vibes? And we will shout you out on a future episode. Rachel, would you like to know my character this week?
Tell me, Taylor, who are you?
Yeah, episode 102. This week I have been feeling lots of different things, been working, been not working, been having days off, been I know, it's so nice, so nice. But also, I do work in mental health. This character also works in mental health. We'll say on my days off, I've just been vibing with my wife a lot and getting some quality time. I feel like this character also loves his wife and gets a lot of quality time with her. And then also, my wife and I have been doing a lot of thrifting recently, and I feel like this character would vibe a thrift shop. And so I am Marvin from Falsettos because I feel like he kind of encapsulates all those things.
Yeah, that's
so
fun.
That's who I am this week. All right, I had to come in here and correct myself because, and you can probably excuse my baby's crying in the background. Not crying, but playing. I am not Marvin this week because Marvin is none of those things. He does not work in mental health. He does not look like he could vibe a thrift store. And he does not love his wife because he cheated on his wife. Because that, in fact, I am Mendel from Falsettos. Please blame my baby brain, my getting any sleep brain. I guess no one should ever have a podcast and work a full job and have a newborn all at the same time. So forgive me, but thanks for this correction. Back to the show. Rachel, who are you this week? Who is your character?
This week, it's just been a comedy of errors. It really has. It's been like forward progress and 8 steps back all at the same time. There's been a lot going on for my loyal listeners.
Some not fun steps back.
Yeah. So for my loyal listeners, my cats went away this week, which is exciting. They went back to their owner, and that's very good. But I also am sad. But also me trying to get prepared to get the cats ready was like a comedy routine in and of itself. I went to work this week, and then I didn't work a few days this week because I had worked so much last week. Anyway, but like there was lots of things I was trying to do, and I just felt like I was just stumbling over myself, and it was very funny. And I told Taylor before this that I actually stumbled onto a nail and put my entire foot on top of the nail.
Oh my gosh.
We're going to hope I don't have tennis. So if someone just wants
Emily Blunt in A Quiet Place, that's who she was this week, really.
So if someone wants to check in every day for the next 30 days to make sure I don't have tetanus, that would be great. Shout out to my mom who 100% is going to call me when she when she hears this part.
Yeah.
But that reminds me, that plus the question we ask in our Every La La Bland reminds me of another slapstick material that was also on Broadway. And I feel like maybe I am this one man show, one man, two governors. And that's why I'm this week, played by none other than James Corden.
Oh my gosh, that's the Tony winner. That's the show he won his Tony for. He is closer to an EGOT than some other people. That's all I want to say.
True.
Oh man, that's amazing. I love that. One man, two governors. Wow, incredible. Well, if you guys would like to join in on our discussion, check us out at theaternerdpod.com, our YouTube channel, Theater Nerd Podcast, and on Instagram and Threads at Theater Nerd Pod, and on Facebook at Theater Nerd Podcast.
Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next week.